Ladies and gentlemen, we are so excited that you are joining us for another webinar brought to you by the Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I am excited. I'm Brother Joe Paul, Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer for the greatest fraternity in the entire world. You know the name, that black and old gold, Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We're excited. We are so excited because we've partnered with NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, the Realtist. They've been around for a while, and we've partnered with them to bring you some added value webinars around building wealth through home ownership. I'm extremely excited. I don't want to spend more time than I need to telling you about why you need to be here and why you need to invite a friend. But we're adding tremendous value to what you do, my brothers, and anyone who's paying attention to us. I want to take this point of personal privilege to introduce Bishop Craig Worsham, who is going to be talking to us for a little bit. We're going to be coming back. We have an action-packed webinar for you. You're going to learn a lot. I guarantee you. Our goal is to make sure that you know that there are several paths to building wealth, and one of them is through home ownership. So again, without further ado, I'm Joe Paul, your Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer, and we're in association with NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers. We bring you Black men building wealth through home ownership.
Let's ask God's blessings upon this gathering this evening as we have assembled ourselves to learn, to grow, and to be equipped with the tools that we need to improve the quality of life for all of God's people. Lord God, for this moment, this time and space, we give you thanks for this holistic collaboration between Phi Alpha and NAREB. Collectively, some 187 years of service to the community, fighting for justice and equity for all of your people, in particular, people of color. Now, Lord, for every presenter, every lecturer, every panelist that will share from their wealth of knowledge and wisdom, open our ears to receive, open our hearts and our hands to return back to our communities, to extend them, to help our people move from the dream of home ownership into the reality of home ownership. Thank you, Lord. In your name, amen. I present to you the chair lady of our Civic Engagement Committee that has worked tirelessly for the last year and a half or more to bring us to this point, to bring us to this space, working with our religious and civic leaders across this country to promote the message of building Black wealth through home ownership. Madam Laura Washington, who hails from the city of Dallas, Texas.
Thank you, Bishop Worsham, and thank you guys, and thank you everyone. Good evening to all. Would like to thank you for this opportunity to moderate this opportunity for this great partnership between Phi Alpha and the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, better known as NAREB. So welcome here tonight. I am honored as the Civic Engagement Chair to present one of many events between NAREB and Phi Alpha. As the Civic Engagement Chair, my job is to bridge the gap and to collaborate with other African American organizations, our faith-based as well as our civic organizations, to come together as one cause, and that cause is to increase the homeownership within the African American community. Currently, our homeownership rate is at 44% as compared to our counterparts at 73%. There's a 30% gap there. So in order for us to do that, we have to partner with our faith-based and our civic organization. And so I'm so honored here tonight to have the Phi Alphas and presenting to them on homeownership. And this is one of many opportunities that we will have. So looking forward to that. So without further ado, we'll have John Paul introduce Dr. Ward.
Yes, indeed. I'll give you a pass. It's Joe Paul. I've been called worse, though. It's all good. So, folks, it is my absolute honor and pleasure. Everything that you've been seeing coming out of the general headquarters, our corporate headquarters, has been under the leadership of the esteemed 35th General President, Dr. Everett B. Ward, a brother's brother, a gentleman, a scholar. And we're just so proud to have him. And it's an honor for me to introduce our General President as he shares some words with you. Brother President.
Good evening and welcome to all of you. We are certainly honored as men of Phi Alpha Fraternity to partner with the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Tonight, my brothers, we want you to gain extreme levels of knowledge. Owning your own home and building Black wealth and economic development is a critical component of Phi Alpha Fraternity. As a fraternity of scholars and leaders and servants, we must always be concerned about how we can better our community, and through our leadership, through our commitment of service, do all that we can. It was said earlier today by Ms. Washington that there's a 30% gap between ownership among African Americans and other counterparts, particularly within the white community. 44% home ownership by African Americans, 73% home ownership among white Americans. We must close that gap. But there was another alarming fact that I learned that really gave us reason that we have got to do all that we can as university men. The home ownership is lower for Black college graduates than it is for white high school dropouts. So we've got to do everything we can to introduce the importance of home ownership at an earlier stage in our matriculation as men and women in our community, but more importantly, not just owning one home, but own multiple homes and be a part of economic development in our respective communities. I look forward to the significant information that will be shared with the brotherhood. And I say to you, as your General President, I am hopeful, as you have done in the past, and I know you will do in the future. Take this information, share it with others, and from this great house, we grow a community of well-empowered citizens so that we can make life better, not only for the current generation, but for future generations to come through economic development and home ownership. Much success. And again, thank you, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, for your commitment to bring knowledge to our community.
Thank you so very much, Brother General President. My name is Donnell Williams. I am the president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, and we bring you greetings. I am excited to be with you all, and even more excited about the partnership we have formed to impact and transform lives across this country. More importantly, Black lives across this country. We understand that these are turbulent times, challenging times, strange times. And we look forward to unifying this relationship to impact lives across this country. We have systematically put some initiatives in place that will help you and will help us and help our people. As you stated, the Black home ownership rate is hovering around 44% right now. The white home ownership rate is 73.1% right now. There were some things in play that hindered us, but we have to continue to get this message across that Black home ownership matters. When you have a home, you live longer. There are less food deserts, less educational deserts. So we want to push all of our folks to be homeowners, and we've come across a few things, sir. We've come across there are 1.7 million Black millennials that make over $100,000 a year that do not own a home. We have to change that mindset. We developed housethenthecar.com. We have a study from Freddie Mac that says the average age of an African American that purchases his or her first home is 48 years old. So when you purchase a home at 48 years old, there are some other conversations that need to be had. Insurance, wills, trust. So we developed a committee for that. Rosie, real estate opportunities for seasoned individuals, ROSI. We spread out and enhanced our faith-based and civic engagement partners under the leadership of Laura Washington, the very qualified Laura Washington. Now we have MOUs with not only the NAACP, not only the Alphas, AME 2nd District, AME 9th District, Church of God in Christ, Full Gospel Fellowship, St. Jude, Sickle Cell Anemia. We're going across the country and we are changing lives. I'm excited about it. And I'm glad for the Alphas to be the first fraternity on our bandwagon in this fight, in the trenches with us. So without further ado, we do have a bunch of things to show you. We have our own auction site coming up. We have a referral network Laura will talk to you about. We have the Rosie Committee here. We have the House in the Car. So we are excited about partnering with you and changing lives. So I thank you all so very much. And we are identified as Real TIST. It is not a misspelling. We are the members of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, founded in 1947, 73 years old, and we are moving forward. So I thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, for that introduction regarding NAREB, N-A-R-E-B. Again, thank you for that. So with homeownership and our rating where we are today, currently at 44%, we're slightly higher than where we were a year ago from today, which was 41.1%. But yet we still have a long ways to go. We have a long road ahead of us because there's a 30% gap between us and our white counterparts at 73.7%. We have to continue to fight the fight to increase wealth within our community. 52% of our wealth comes from homeownership, but we only have 44%. So we have a long ways to go in increasing that homeownership rate. As the president said, the average age for African American to own their first home is 48%. We need to start earlier. We need to start as soon as they're graduating from college. Instead of renting, we need to make them homeowners. So we need to continue to educate our people. We need to continue to educate our children. We need to continue to seek ways to make sure that we become homeowners in every way possible, because everyone can own a home if you desire to own a home. If you're renting, I have people tell me all the time, I don't want to pay a mortgage. If you are renting, you are paying someone's mortgage. You just paying someone else's mortgage. You are paying that mortgage, it's someone else's mortgage. You cannot reap any big benefits from paying someone else's mortgage. They're the only ones that can build wealth from that mortgage. So we need everyone to be on board with homeownership. Increase that homeownership rate. We're steady on the rise at 44% right now. We need to continue to raise that, because as we increase homeownership, we increase wealth within our communities. So this evening, we're going to talk about homeownership, how to get into homeownership, or if you're already in homeownership, having issues. We're going to talk about some things there to help you out there. We're going to talk about debts. We're going to talk about credit, everything relating to the homeowner process. We're going to touch on that tonight. And again, we can't hit everything tonight, so this is just the beginning of many opportunities that we're going to share with you guys, and we're looking forward to the forward relationship. So our first panel we're going to bring up, we're going to talk about the homeownership process. We're going to talk about credit, housing counseling, and we're going to talk about credit in a different way than we generally talk about it. Basically, your credit score, your FICO score, etc. So we're going to ask our panel, Mr. Mankel Haynes, Mark Alston, Michelle Callaway, and Janai Lake. We're going to have them do a brief introduction of themselves, who they're with, their title, and just a brief introduction of what they do. Mark, we'll start with you.
For the ladies, go first. My name is Mark Alston. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I own a mortgage company, Alston and Associates Mortgage. I've been providing mortgages for the last 30 years for African American men and women, for families to build wealth. That's what I do. I believe in Black home ownership and Black families. In establishing ourselves in our community. I'm excited to be talking to the next generation of leaders. That's who I believe that you are. And this next generation, I hope, can get it right. And so I'm excited to be able to add some information and ammunition as you navigate this road of life and move forward in your life.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janiyah Lake, and I'm the Deputy Director with the D-Free Global Foundation. We are very happy to partner with NARAB as well, and we focus on helping people deal with their finances in ways that prepare them for homeownership and teach not only how to get your financial house in order, but making goals for yourself so that you can attain your financial dreams of building wealth, like things like including homeownership. And so I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Callaway. I am the chairman of the board for NAREB. I'm also managing broker owner of Exit Realty Quality Solutions in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a certified Hud Approved Housing Counselor, as well as a state of Georgia real estate instructor, and work very hard to make sure that education is front and center around financial education and home ownership. And I'm very glad to be here tonight, and I'm excited about this partnership so that we can make sure that all of the alphas have the information they need so that they can be sustainable homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. If we have Mankel. Okay, we're going to move forward. First of all, we're going to talk about, there are so many barriers that come up when we are trying to purchase a home. And one of the main barriers when we're trying to purchase a home is student loans. So we're going to have Mr. Mark Alston to talk about student loans and how we can overcome those barriers of student loans in preparing us for home ownership.
Thank you. Were you able to, I guess we're going without the presentation of the PowerPoint. So when we talk about student loan debt, again, I've been providing mortgage financing for over 30 years. And what has happened over the years is mortgage financing has become more restrictive, not less restrictive. Student loan requirements have become more cumbersome, not less cumbersome. It's become more difficult to buy a house if you have student loans. Student education costs have gone up. 86% of Black students who go to public colleges have student loans as compared to 59% of white students. Resembles the gap in home ownership. It's 24% as opposed to almost 30%. In the aggregate, whether you go to a private school, a private four-year institution, a for-profit private, a nonprofit private, or a four-year institution, where 83% of us require student loans in order to get through that schooling. Student loan debt is $1.5 trillion today. That's compared to $1.29 trillion in auto debt and $1.07 trillion in credit card debt. Student loan debt is the highest level of debt that we have in America. Student loan debt is up 302% since 2004. When we talk about student loan debt, when we talk about buying a house, when we talk about Black people building wealth through home ownership, I think it needs to be understood that there have been policies and procedures in place since slavery to restrict home ownership and make it difficult or illegal for Blacks to own houses, starting with exclusive zoning regulations that were in place through 1917. The private covenants that said you just couldn't live there. You could only be there if you were a handyman or a servant after 6 o'clock, or institutionalized, federally institutionalized racism through redlining, which FHA, who we think was created for us, was actually created to move white folks out of the area and into the new housing projects that they had in the day. So we've had restrictions through our federal policy to keep us from being able to obtain housing over the years. Black students have the highest percentage of student debt. Highest percentage of Black students have student debt, and we have the highest amount of debt. Black family income, wealth, and home ownership are down since 2004. To give you an example, income today, the aggregate across the board, Black family, not per capita, but family income for Blacks is $43,966. These are 2019 numbers. 51,747 for Hispanics, 70,727 for Caucasians, and 91,000 for Asians. We have the lowest amount of income in the country for any ethnicity. We also have the lowest amount of wealth. It has been said across the country that Blacks have 5.5 cents for every dollar white people have. In Los Angeles, it's even worse. There was a study done by the Asian Realtor Group that said that we have a penny for every dollar that white people have in our area. What does that mean? It has a home ownership impact. It's tougher for us. When we talk about student loans, the big issue is your debt to income ratio. That we qualify you based on what your bills are in comparison to your income. In the past, we used to use, you could get, if your loan was deferred for 2 years, we didn't have to use any payment and you could qualify. Today, that has changed. First of all, there's almost no 2-year deferments. Your deferments are 1 year at a time, and they've changed the rules depending on where you're getting your loan from. So how do we move from student loan debt to home ownership? If you are buying a house, you have the opportunity in this environment, this housing finance environment, to either go conventional, FHA, or VA. And each one has different criteria for buying. So one of the things that we need to do when you've got student loan debt, and the majority of you probably have student loan debt, you want to buy a house, is to determine, to plan out how it's going to work for you. U.S. housing policies have made it more difficult to buy a house with student loan debt. If you're going to go FHA, for instance, FHA, which is the majority of Black home buyers, first-time home buyers in America, use the FHA program. FHA is the most restrictive when it comes to student loan debt. FHA requires, for the most part, that you use 1% of whatever your balance is as your debt. So if you owe $80,000 in your student loan debt, then we have to use an $800 payment counted against you in your debt to income ratio. Remember, your debt to income ratio is what qualifies you to be able to buy that house. So generally, 45% of your gross income can go towards your house payment, all your bills, and you still qualify. So if you're in an early part of your employment history and you have 80,000, which is not a low number, not an usual number for student loan debt, we have to use an $800 payment against you along with your car note and whatever else you had, and it stops you from qualifying. Now, with FHA, if you can get a letter from your student loan holder, which we found almost impossible to get, that shows that your loan is fully amortized. In other words, the payment that you're making will pay off the loan in a set number of years, and it shows that, then we can use that payment if it's lower. Okay, now that's FHA. If you're going conventional and it's Freddie Mac, remember conventional, it's either Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, and they each operate differently. Freddie Mac, if you have a non-amortized payment, but it has the payment on your credit report, I can use that. If it says 0 on the credit report, most of you, over 50% of Black students with student loans are in an income-based repayment plan, and a lot of those are at 0. Freddie Mac will not allow me to use the 0 payment. It requires that I use 0.5% of the balance as the payment. So if you're at $100,000, then I have to use a $500 payment for your student loan every month. If you're in deferment, I have to use a $500 payment or a 0.5% payment. The easiest and best one, conventional financing, is Fannie Mae, which will allow me to use whatever the income-based repayment plan says. If it's at 0, then I can use 0 as the payment. So when you're applying for a loan and you have some understanding of what programs are available, FHA might take the looser credit, but Fannie Mae will take the least restrictive payment when it comes to your student loans. If you're in an income-based repayment plan, it will allow me to use whatever that is. I just closed a deal with a lawyer who works for the city of Los Angeles, young lady, doesn't make a lot. She's in the DA's office, so she makes about $60,000 a year. She had $330,000 worth of student loans. Her income-based repayment plan payment was $33. So we were able to use a $33 payment to allow her to qualify because we went Fannie Mae. A little bit of information can make all of the difference in the world, because generally your loan professionals, your mortgage professionals do not recognize.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. We're going to get the panelists right back up in 30 seconds. We want to make sure everybody's in the right place at the right time. We're excited and we're sharing a lot of information with you. Can we bring Laura back up, Laura Washington? Hey, there she is. So what I wanted to do was take about 30 seconds so we can get everything together. And I know we have Michelle Callaway joining us. We have Mankel. We have a action-packed lineup of experts who are with NAREB. And Laura, I want to tell you thank you so much, because you taught me so much in the short time that we've known each other. One of the things that surprised me, though, that we talked about before was, the average age of African Americans buying homes, 48 years old. Can you hear me? Laura, can you hear me? Stand by, folks. Laura, can you hear me? If you can hear me, wave. We can't hear you, but here's what we can do. Again, as I was explaining to you folks, we have an action-packed list of folks who are going to be joining us. Laura, if you could just try saying something. Let me see if I can hear you. I can't. Make sure you're not on mute. Make sure you're not on mute. If we can bring in Michelle Callaway really quickly. Let's see if we can hear her. Because we have folks who are... All right, Michelle.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You have your presentation ready to go?
Yeah.
Let's rock and
Yes,
roll.
I
These folks,
do.
they're waiting on you. You're one of the stars of the show. Let's get it going. You got the mic. We're glad to have you. We really are.
Okay.
So take it over. It's your show.
All right. So my role tonight is to talk about sustain your home. We know that during this time period with COVID-19, there's been many people who are homeowners that have experienced some hardship. However, there's been a couple of acts and laws that have been passed to assist homeowners as well as employees. The one that I want to talk about tonight is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, known as the CARES Act. And this specifically has components in it that are here to aid homeowners from losing their houses. And first of all, again, I'm a managing broker as well as a real estate counselor. Let me tell you a little bit about the federally backed programs that are subject to the CARES Act. Effective March 18th, 2020, lenders and servicers may not foreclose for 60 days after March 18th on anyone that has a federally backed loan. That means they could not begin or finalize a foreclosure judgment, whether it's a state that goes through the court system, which is called judicial, or a non-judicial state where they have other means very easily can do foreclosures if it were not for the CARES Act. One of the reasons that one can obtain and not be foreclosed on is because they can demonstrate a financial hardship that is as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. One of the benefits of the CARES Act to help homeowners remain in their homes is they can request what's known as a forbearance. The forbearance, which basically puts a pause on them having to make current payments on their mortgage, and it puts a pause on for up to 180 days. That would be 6 months. However, if at the conclusion of the 6 months, they are still experiencing financial hardship, they may ask for an extension of the forbearance for up to another 180 days. So a total of eligibility for the forbearance would be 1 year. All the homeowner has to do is contact their loan servicer. That means who they're paying their mortgage payments to every month, and request the forbearance. They must do the contact and do the request, otherwise it will not be extended to them. There are no fees for requesting this forbearance, and no penalties or additional interest should be added to their mortgage payment if they are given a forbearance. There at this time is no additional documentation needed to qualify. So the homeowner, you simply go to call your servicer, that's whomever you make your payments to, you request assistance because you're being affected financially by the pandemic. You will then be put into a request process, and then you will should be able to be given the financial hardship claim. Now, this is for federally backed mortgages. What happens when you don't have a federally backed mortgage? It really becomes up to that servicer or the lender. That means the institution that extended the loan to you. The servicer is the entity that you make the payments to on behalf of that lender. Pardon me. So when it's a non-federally backed loan, then it really is, you reach out still to that lender. Of course, because of the pandemic, most lenders are extending some sort of remedy through a forbearance, but it is not something that is covered under any act, but it is strongly recommended, and most of them are complying because they don't actually want properties back. So what a mortgage forbearance is when the mortgage servicer or lender allows payment to be paused or suspended, or they may just reduce payments for a period of time. The forbearance does not mean that payments are forgiven or erased. You're required to repay any missed or reduced payments in the future, so they will become due. The suspended payments or reduced payments will become due. Understand how the forbearance will be repaid is very important. Even though there's not an additional documentation that's being required at this point, you do want to have all of your documentation, like maybe loss of hours on your job, reduction of payments, any paperwork that has been sent to you by the lender or anyone on their behalf. If it's a third party sending you documents, you want to put all of that and find a nice box to save everything, because though at this moment they're not asking for documents, when you approach the conclusion of your forbearance time period, they may ask for documents in the rear. And if you need to get an extension, they may ask for documents. So you want to put everything together so you can easily put your hands on their bank statements. Keep up with them so you can show that you had a reduction possibly in what you were taking in. So just make sure you keep your payments together. There may be different forbearance programs and options depending on the type of loan you have. When your income is restored, what you're to do is to contact your servicer and let them know that you're back in a position to begin to make payments again and that you would like to come out of the forbearance, because remember, these are not payments that are going to be forgiven or erased. You will owe them. When you are dealing with the following federally backed loans or entities that may be quasi-government, the following are Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, USDA. Any of those loans that come from these entities would qualify under the CARES Act and would be eligible to afford you, upon request, the forbearance option. At the end of the forbearance, repayment options can include things such as paying all the missed payments at one time, or spreading them out over a period of time, or they could be added to the end of your mortgage in one lump sum. So let us imagine that an individual had a forbearance for 6 months and their payment was $1,000 a month. That would be a cumulative amount of $6,000 that would be owed at the end of that period when they resume their payments. Again, that could be an option of paying it because you may have the income to do that over a specific amount of months, or you may have a lump sum. You had a windfall, want to get it off the back of your mortgage. You paid it one time, or you ask them to attach it to the back of your mortgage and it will be added to your principal amount due. And that would have to be taken care of upon sale or refinance of that property. Moratorium is to suspend or stop foreclosures. A foreclosure is when the lender takes back the property when a homeowner fails to make all the required payments on the mortgage. Foreclosures process differ from state to state. Some are done through the courts and some are not. However, under the federal law, a servicer generally cannot start the foreclosure process until the loan is more than 120 days past due, and this is due to the CARES Act. There can be an exception depending on the forbearance if you also are under forbearance or some other type of a program with the lender servicer that may take it beyond the 120 days, as I described with the forbearance program, where one could be under that plan for up to 1 year, and therefore no foreclosure process would begin. But if if the individual did not request a forbearance under the CARES Act, they still would have had time. The point of the matter is, in today's environment, servicers and lenders really are trying to work to avoid foreclosure. They don't want to be in the business of owning property. This is a quick list of the federal agencies that back the loans I mentioned. HUD is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The USD loan is done by the Department of Agriculture. We also have the Federal Housing Administration that deals specifically with the FHA loans as well as the reverse mortgage loans. Also the VA, Department of Veterans Affairs, that handles that loan. And then we have the conventional loans that are under Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Any of these entities, their products would be eligible for the forbearance under the CARES Act. Again, contact the servicer that your loan is under, who you make the payments to. And then to find that information, if you're not sure, then you look on the statement. It will have who you're making the payments to. There should be a number for customer service. When you get through the customer service, you let them know that you're calling about requesting a forbearance. This is what you may tell your friends or family. If it doesn't affect you directly, they need to make that call. Do not sit there and let the envelopes come in and not do anything, because when the time period is up, which we should be approaching, because many things that are under COVID that have been automatic will be ending in July, other than a forbearance where you have a specific time period for that forbearance to conclude. But the other niceties that have been extended to the consumer today will be ending very shortly. So make the call. Owner tips: keep written documentations on hand. Pay attention to your monthly mortgage statements because they will still come even if you have a forbearance. Stop or change any auto payments for the mortgage that were coming out your bank account, because you don't want, first of all, to, if you don't have the money, to have your bank account having bad withdrawals, as well as if you're given the forbearance, you don't have to make a payment. You keep an eye on your credit because you're not supposed to have negative marks reported to the credit bureau. Now, I have seen situations where people were in forbearances and it was reported as being late. What needs to happen is when you're given the forbearance, you will get a letter from that lender stating that you're in a forbearance. Of course, keep that with all the documentation, as I mentioned. But that would be when you do a dispute with the credit bureau and you would present that letter to show that you are in an approved forbearance. And the only thing that it can show, a lender can report to the credit bureau that there's a specific code that shows that you're in a forbearance, but it is not the same as showing you as delinquent on payment of a mortgage, which is a completely different thing and will harm your credit score in a different way, will impact it in a different way. Remember, once your income is restored, you contact your servicer and resume your payments. However, property taxes and insurance, if you have an escrow account that was with your mortgage, even though the mortgage will be suspended, if that escrow account has the funds in it, because they've been collecting it all along, then they will continue to pay your taxes and insurance. If you do not have an escrow for taxes and insurance, then you are responsible to make sure that your taxes and insurance are paid, even though you may have been extended a forbearance. What about renters? Are there any protections for them under the CARES Act? If an owner of a property has a loan that is backed by the federal programs that I showed previously, and they rent out their units under the CARES Act, then they the tenants are suspended from being evicted. And that only applies to owners of properties whose loans themselves, their mortgages, have been backed by federal programs. They cannot evict the tenants. All right. Now, if the landlord has a federally backed mortgage or it's a multifamily unit building mortgage, then no evictions for non-payment of rent for 120 days. That would have been 4 months, and that began March 27th when the CARES Act was initiated. After the 120-day period is up, the landlord cannot require the tenant to vacate until providing them with a 30-day notice to vacate. So we're really talking about it was a total of 5 months. Obviously, the safeguards for a renter is not at all at the same level, even by federally backed mortgage properties, as it is for homeowners. There isn't a real safeguard there. There are things that are being enacted and being pushed through, trying to be pushed through Congress to protect renters, because as you see, the total is a 5-month period, and basically that landlord could proceed with eviction procedures. So there are things being done, but there is a disparity between those that rent and those that own, and it's clear here. Where you can seek help and advice if you need assistance or have a conversation. Again, remember, if you own a property and it is backed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, HUD, VA, or USDA, you simply call the servicer and you request assistance of a forbearance, or you ask them, what can I qualify for? But just know that the forbearance is something that you can ask for, even if whomever is being spoken to on the phone acts as though they don't understand what you're asking for, you ask for a supervisor. But if you need assistance under HUD, there are HUD approved counselors. The best way to locate one in your area is to go to www.hud.gov and look for a list of housing counselors. These are individuals who are certified by the government to assist and advocate on behalf of homeowners and other consumers in the area of home ownership and as well as rental. Now, you do not pay for these services. The services are generally free. Due to this overwhelming amount of people that are calling these counselors, it may take a little while to get assistance, but that assistance is there. And that would be how you locate where someone might be in your community. And with that, that concludes my presentation for homeowner assistance. And I hope they give you some information that you will be able to take with you. And if there are any questions, I don't know if we're taking questions, but I guess they can go in the chat box. Thank you so much. And I enjoy being able to share this presentation with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was powerful, Miss Callaway. We hope you're learning because we're trying to teach you. And you know, when you're explaining and dropping knowledge, you know, some people just don't want you to hear it, but we're determined to make sure that you do. Want to bring Mark back up. Let's bring Mark back up really quickly. There's our good friend, Mark. Everybody's been waiting with bated breath to hear the rest of your report because it's just you're dropping knowledge and you're adding so much value to the conversation. So we want to give you an opportunity to finish your presentation and share with the folks what they came to get, some knowledge.
Thank you. You know, I was thinking about it when the computer dropped me, that it's a complicated conversation when talking about how to calculate school loans and buy a house. The thing that I can say is you need to deal with, we suffer from not having enough mortgage originators who look like us or care enough about us that they offer the program, the information of the knowledge that will allow you to buy a house. You can buy a house, motivated buyer and a motivated seller with cash and a FICO score that makes it work. You can get it done. Student loan debt is part of America's housing finance policy that has restricted and constricted Black home ownership. I think to finish it up, other than the fact that Fannie Mae, it's important, and Fannie Mae has a program called Home Ready. Home Ready, which NARAB was instrumental in helping to put it together, has the ability to finance you with your income-based repayment plan payment. It has the least restrictive guidelines. But what I really want to say to our young leaders and to the people who will be guiding us through the next this millennium that we're in is that we need a new plan. Why does it cost so much to go to college? They tell you need a college education to get a good job, but then the pay that they're paying Black Americans after they come out of college does not pay for the amount of college that it took to get that education. And if you're going to graduate school, it's not unusual for me to see $150,000, $200,000 worth of school loans. 1 in 2 Black students default in 12 years from the time they take out their student loans. That's out of 1 in 5 in white students. It's real important. What we really need is a new plan. We need a new plan. We need some creative young thinkers to come up with policies that will allow us to matriculate through the educational process and not be burdened by student loans that retard our progress in building Black wealth. That's the problem. We start 10 years later because we have 10 years more debt. The legacy of not having accumulated generational wealth, 246 years of slavery, 156 years of Jim Crow, our home ownership percentage is lower today at 44% than it was in 1968 when they made discrimination illegal. It's time to change that. And building Black wealth starts with home ownership. It has been said the majority of Black wealth is tied up in home ownership. You need a place to live anyway. navigating your student loans, paying attention to them, not taking them out if you don't need them is the very best thing that I can tell you. After that, you need a qualified mortgage originator, real estate professional, preferably someone who looks like you, that will take that experience with what you're working with and knows programs and knows how to counsel you through it. It is the number one message that I need to say. You need to buy your own house. We need to build our own wealth. If you can't buy your own house, let's find a landlord that looks like us and build their wealth. So I think that's the end of what I really have to say. It's a process that we have to navigate. We've got student loans in my kids. It's not something that we don't understand. But it's a difficult, burdensome, cumbersome process that retards our ability to grow well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really sincerely appreciate you on behalf of the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha. We really appreciate you. Ms. Washington, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Absolutely. Sweet sounds. Take it away. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for that piece of information. Now we're going to move on to Ms. Janiyah Lake with D-Free. Janiyah is going to talk about a different approach to credit. Not your standard credit scores, your FICO scores, et cetera, but a different way of looking at how we look at our debt. So without further ado, we're going to have Ms. Janiyah Lake with D-Free.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to share a joint initiative that we're doing that will benefit everyone, and just a little bit of information around, to Laura's point, how we look at our credit and take all of the different information that we have. So with D-Free, we really focus on really helping people take a look at how they're managing their finances and have strategies and practical approaches. And so just a little bit of history about D-Free. It was created in 2005 by Dr. DeForest B. Soares Jr. And he's very transparent about his testimony as he developed this program. And so what it was is he was a pastor leading a church and found himself living in debt, making decisions around his money, deficit living. And I'll share just a couple definitions of how he kind of really determined living foolishly with his money. And as he went to go and look for, education opportunities, ways and strategies that he could change, how he was dealing with his money, knowing the historical context, maybe knowing some of the lack of education or lack of opportunity that has happened in our communities. And so as he went to go and look for information, he was able to develop a whole program around this. And so D-Free at its core, we really focus on the behavior components that people have that affect their money. My background is banking and finance, and I know that it's not more money that usually helps people make decisions. They think it is, I'll save when I have more money. I will do these things when I have more money. A lot of times it's the decisions that we make in our day-to-day life that get in our way and create our own barriers. Sometimes it's not a lack of opportunity or access anymore. We are not correcting our behaviors to help us deal with our monies. So D-Free really challenges people. We take a look culturally how we perform in money. You're hearing a lot of stats today. So we take a look at how we're making those decisions, and then we challenge people to readjust. We challenge people to reground themselves in their values. We challenge them to take a look at some value systems that they have that's affecting their money and behaviors and their spending that's showing up, community-based, lifestyle, cultural, all of those things. We really challenge people to unpack that. And then we go into financial literacy. So, we know that people can Google financial literacy now. People can have access to financial literacy. They can take classes, but there is a component that causes it that they're not necessarily changing those behaviors. And so we really challenge people to do that and then give them the strategies and the practical approaches that they need to make those changes. And so D-Free, we really look to improve financial status. And it's not just about getting out of debt. And I'll share kind of the D of D-free, but we really focus on helping individuals and then creating a larger community as well through our families, our churches, to really change how we're performing economically. And so we know that there's great impact when we join together as a community. And you heard Laura mention this is a 12-step. So we tackle that behavior, create a community around performing better, really honestly, and just taking a look at what we do with our money. So it's a whole entire movement. The D's of D-free actually really stand for something. So a lot of people call this, debt-free, the debt-free program. And we know being debt-free or managing our money is really the baseline. That doesn't help us build wealth. That's getting us to zero. And so we want to use the D's as freedom from the bad D's and freedom to participate in the good D's. And so if we take a look at debts, delinquencies, and deficits, and some of those we can define, immediately. Like people know, I know what debt is, I know what delinquency is, I know what deficits are, but we really challenge people with their behaviors around this. So it's not just about credit card debt. It's not about if we're paying our bills on time, or maybe we are paying all of our credit card bills on time, but we might be paying our water bill late, or we might be paying our electric bill late. And where it's not getting cut off, but if we're not paying it on time, we really make people dig into, are you having late fees? Are you having late fees every month that are adding up? And is that a reason that we are not building wealth and not having an emergency savings? We know statistically our community, we look at racial wealth gap, we look at, you've heard stats this evening, but, we challenge people to identify their spending leaks. And so some of those are spending leaks in delinquent living, not credit delinquent living, because sometimes we have that under control. But I used to tell people the amount of overdraft fees that they pay in a year, or taking a look at their bills and if they're paying any late fees, and you add that up. And when you add that up, there is savings opportunity. There is, down payment opportunities. There is your closing cost opportunities, and things that people think they don't have, they do have. And it's usually wrapped up in their lifestyle and their living. And then deficit living. So we want to help people build goals for wealth. We want to help them utilize these partnerships such as this, so that they can learn about homeownership, learn about down payment assistance programs, and have access to financial professionals and the things that we just don't take advantage of, so that we can build wealth by making better decisions and making decisions that are building wealth for us versus spending habits that we have. And then we look at establishing, the good D's. So this is deposits, this is building. We challenge people to start with an emergency savings. We know you are financially vulnerable if you cannot put your hand on $500 for an emergency. That means you would have to either borrow money, or you would have to use credit cards, or you would have to do something if you don't have that ready as an emergency. And so just life could cause you to be delinquent living. So we challenge people to start there and build the habits of savings. Savings is very much a habit. It's not when I get my tax refund, I'll save. It's not once I get this windfall, then I'll start to save. It's very much a muscle that you exercise every single month by having a habit of building savings, and you will start to see those things grow. And then we dividends on top of that, how to protect that money that we're growing, how to start to invest, how to take a look at insurance products that help us, and then getting to deeds. So having our names on deeds and owning property. So we teach credit as a strategy, whereas some folks teach credit that you should not have any credit. Credit is absolutely necessary as you're building wealth. When you're buying investment properties, or you're buying homes, or you're buying things that are considered good assets that help you build wealth, and not cars, or not, things that depreciate and don't help you build wealth. And so we want to have our names on deeds. And then this is looking at, financial freedom and economic self-sufficiency by just some of these strategies that we teach people. I mentioned that we, a lot of people call us the debt-free program, but we challenge people really along this whole continuum. So we start with debt and we start with that delinquent living because we do really need to take a little bit of time and readjust what we're doing with our money. I challenge people in workshops that I teach. If you don't know what you've spent on your debit card the previous day or the previous week even, then you probably are spending money that you have no idea where it's going. We can all think about times where, we don't know how we've spent that money after we've broken the 50 or after we've broken the $100, or swipe culture. We talk about the psychology of swipe culture, and that spending $50 or spending $500 feels the exact same. And so what that's doing for us in this spend culture and the ease of spending, online shopping and just being influenced by social media and how easy it is to continue shopping. Because once you click on something and look at it, it's almost like it follows you around. And so we teach people that is not, Jesus telling you that you need to buy anything. That is not meaning this reward is for myself, but we really have to align back to our goals and, plans that we make for ourselves to go along this continuum. So we want to begin to get out of debt. We want to get our spending in order. We want to make sure it's aligned and, even accounting for our lifestyle. So we do know there are certain things that we do within our lifestyle, but as long as we plan for those things and they fit within our budget and we're working towards, our financial goals, then we can do some of those things. And so then we want to build an emergency fund, build wealth for people, look at protecting that wealth and then leaving a legacy. And what does that look like? So, even just hearing the statistic this evening of 48 being in the age that people tend to buy houses, this is very important how we transfer that. When we work really hard to start to build wealth, we tend to not have our wills. We tend to not speak to financial professionals. We tend to be underinsured so that we're not passing the wealth that we are working hard to build in ways that it continues to build and leave a legacy within our families and our communities. So that's just a little bit high level about what DFRE does. We do that through a 12-step program. This is a little bit about the initiative, but DFRE partners with national organizations like NARAB. We support individuals. This was built out of a church, but we are really focused on the Black community and really focused on making a shift in how we deal with, the spend culture and money and, closing these gaps. But we want to do that through strategies and through partnerships and through initiatives that help people just know exactly what to do and where they may need to make some adjustments and helping them identify that for themselves. And so it's a book and a workbook is the core curriculum, done in a 12-step way. So it's designed after behavior change model. So that's why it's the same kind of 12 steps. We take people through, that behavior change, identifying their habits, identifying, emotional spending that may be showing up for them and identifying different opportunities that they have to make changes. And then they start to make plans. So spending plans, we even challenge people to think of them as spending plans versus, a budget. A budget feels really restrictive for people, or, I don't want to be hindered on how I'm spending money. Where a spending plan, as long as we're accounting for how we're spending it, feels really freeing to people and it feels like working towards their goals. So some of it is just how we've dealt with money in our communities, in our family, in just, historical context for ourselves and how we deal with money, and really challenging in all of those spaces and then giving solutions and, practical strategies for people to do. And so with the initiative that we've launched with our partnership with NARAB, we are looking to pay down $2 million worth of debt so that we start to help build homeowners and build this savings, build our investing, and stabilize our wealth creation that we are looking to build. We do this through what we call our $1 billion challenge. And our $1 billion challenge is really where we kind of all meet to celebrate success and join the movement. You'll hear many folks on our team talk about, this whole financial and economic empowerment aligns with so many other things that we're working on in our community. And so we're able to help people find strategies that lend to other work that they're doing as well. And so $1 Billion Challenge, you'll see we've paid down more than $24 million worth of debt with our community. And this is just really where people can join groups and get started. So with our partnership with NARAB, they are using this as an initiative to really impact their communities and join people together in this movement so that we can focus on paying off our debt and focus on building wealth through many of the different avenues. So that is kind of DFRE in a nutshell, if you will. It's just the introductory part of that, but we are happy to support this whole initiative in partnership with you all. And to Laura's point, this collaboration where we can help people really have their starting point. Like, where do I get started? I know homeownership may be a goal for myself or my family, but I might need to get some of my little financial house in order or some of the things that I need to address. And so how do I do that? And so we have strategies for you. We have solutions for you, but we also have really fun things like the $1 Billion Challenge where people can join together and celebrate success as well.
Fantastic. What an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Folks, just so you know, if you have any questions, we want to make sure that you ask them. If you're on Facebook Live or YouTube, or if you want to email them to us, please do so. We'd love to answer your questions. Don't worry, we're going to have a part 2. Just so y'all know, we will have a part 2. Laura, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, we will definitely have a part 2 because there's so much information that we need to share with you guys that we can't get it all in tonight. So we're going to bring on Mr. Mankell, who's going to give some brief information regarding the actual overall homeownership process.
How you doing today? My name is Mankell Hayes. I'm a VP at Equity Prime Mortgage. I'm going to talk a little bit about credit and also other components that actually make up the home buying process. So each and every loan consists of 4 C's, and those 4 C's are the collateral, which are the house, the capacity to repay the loan, and also your cash to close. So we're going to focus on kind of the credit part and the cash to close. So for the credit part of it, if your family is anything like my family, a lot of people don't really care when it comes to credit. You hear a lot in our community that we'll just pay for it cash. But the fact of the matter is that when you kind of wreck your credit, not when you kind of, when you do wreck your credit, if you decide to go out and let's say buy a car, or you want to, at some point, you want to buy a house. If your credit is ruined, you're going to pay a higher interest rate at the end of the day. So most people don't understand that having poor credit actually costs you more money than having good credit. So you can look at, you know, when you watch TV, you see 0% financing for Lincoln or different car companies. They're targeting clients that are paying their credit on time. And so what we want is we want our community to be on board with paying their debts on time. Credit was a tool that was started 30 years ago. I'm going to tell you my story. My mother, coming up as a kid, I remember her putting things on layaway. If there's any millennials on the phone, that's where you paid for things. You left it at the store, you paid for it, and then once you paid for it, you took it home. And then I started to notice in the 80s that credit was kind of pushed off on her. And being new to credit, you know, oftentimes you don't know what to do. You don't know how to build credit. So if you are late on anything in the past 12 months, that's going to have a major impact on your scores versus if it's 2 or 3 years later. So let me give you the makeup of your credit score. 35% of your credit rating is based upon you paying your bills on time. So just paying your bills on time accounts for 35% of your credit rating. The other 30% of your credit rating is based upon your credit utilization. That's how you use your credit cards. Your credit card is not a free pass to go out and spend money. To me, what credit cards should be used is for emergency cases only. You're not getting paid until next week and you need to put gas in your car. Well, you may use your credit card. Or if you walk outside and you have a flat tire, but you don't get paid until next week, you may use your credit card. But credit cards were never to be intended to be used as cash. And I can tell you, when I look at someone's overall credit profile, majority of our community, we see debt to income ratios at 45% or higher. And when we qualify you, we're qualifying you based on your gross income. Now think about that. Your gross income is before any taxes are taken out. That's before FICO, state, any insurance, etc., before that's taken out. But also keep in mind that after that mortgage payment and any other credit cards are paid, you still have to live. So you still got to pay your lights, you still got to pay water, you still got to pay all these other essentials that don't show up on your credit report. Let's get back to the remaining part of your credit criteria. 15% is your credit history. The other 10% is your credit makeup. Most people don't understand by just having installment debt. So let's just say you're a borrower and most of your debts are student loans. Well, your scores are going to be lower as a result, because most of the time when we look at student loan debts, the loan amount, let's just say you have a $5,000 loan, your balance, unless you're paying, is going to be that, or it could be above that by the time you add in the accrued interest. So what you really need is you need a makeup of revolving debt, and that revolving debt needs to be 30%. You need to keep the credit card utilization at 30% or less. So if you have a $1,000 credit card, that's $300. If you have a $300 credit card, that's $90. So be mindful of how you use your credit cards, because it does play a major part in your overall scores. Now for FHA, we go down equity prime mortgage, we go down to a 580 credit score. Now keep in mind, 580 credit score is a risk to a lender. So you don't want to just aim for a 580 credit score, because I can tell you that your cash or your out of pocket is going to be a lot more than, let's just say, if we worked on your credit for 3 or 4 months. So give yourself time also when you're looking to buy a house, give yourself time so you're not stressed out trying to pay off debts in a shorter period of time. Did I lose you? Hello?
You're totally good, man, Kel. Keep on going. You're on a roll, my brother.
I'm still good. Okay. All right. So
you're on a roll. Keep going.
So getting back to the overall credit situation, we want to just be mindful of how we're utilizing these credit cards. Again, for FHA, we go down to a 580 credit score. FHA is definitely an easier loan to obtain. FHA allows for past bankruptcies. FHA allows for past foreclosures. So the rule is 2 years on a bankruptcy, 3 years on a foreclosure. Now, the downside to FHA is that you're going to have mortgage insurance for the life of the mortgage, and that protects the lender, okay? With conventional financing, which is the better financing of the two, once you have accumulated 22% equity in your property, you can actually cancel mortgage insurance. So oftentimes when I'm talking to our community, I will put someone in an FHA mortgage. Let's just say if their credit scores are 580 or just say a 600. Give them 12 months of making their mortgage payments on time, and once their credit scores go to a 660 or higher, convert that borrower over to a conventional mortgage. So that is a tool that is often used to buy a house. So don't be ashamed or don't be afraid to use FHA as a tool. But long-term financing your house, your goal should be to finance the house using conventional financing. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Mankel, for that information on credit. Credit is so crucial in the home buying process. So let's make sure we're using these tips today. And again, if you have any questions on anything that's been covered, please make sure you put your questions there. We will create a Q&A and send out to every participant that's been that was on tonight. So if we don't get to the Q&A tonight, we will send the Q&A out to you. So moving on. As the president stated in the beginning, he has a very aggressive agenda that he has created for his presidency in order for us to create homeownership and increase the homeownership. So Civic Engagement is one of his initiatives. And again, with Civic Engagement, we're out there making relationships and collaborating with other faith-based and civic organizations. We have two other of his initiatives. Tonight, we have Miss Bessie Edwards, who's going to talk about Rosie, which is the real estate opportunity for seasoned individuals.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bessie Edwards, and I'm a member of the Bed-Stuy Real Estate Board in Brooklyn, New York. And the Rosie Committee is developed and designed to help people who have worked so hard, such as Black men, to generate wealth. And the Rosie Committee is designed to help keep that wealth in the family, because as we all know, it takes a while to build wealth, and if you use it just for one lifetime, then it might not even last long enough to be considered wealth. So what Rosie does is we help people plan to keep the wealth in the family. And we call that generational wealth retention. And just to summarize some of the issues that we help people address is we feel that it's very important that people realize that they're not going to live forever. And I don't think there's anyone that could argue that point. And I think that one of the things that the African American community could build on is to help their children learn how to manage the wealth that they accumulate over the years that they are working. And you would want to pass that wealth on to the family. And how do you do that? You plan what you're going to do with the things that you own, so that once you're gone, you are still there, because your family members or whoever you leave in charge is responsible for facilitating your wishes after you're gone. So the thing that we focus on mostly is, and it was mentioned here tonight, is just sort of making the family sensitive to financial literacy. And that just happens to be so simple, and we think that people would not have a problem doing that. But I was just talking to someone in my neighborhood whose mother passed away, and we were just so surprised that the young man, the son, who is a teacher and a college graduate, didn't know anything about how to pay the mortgage on the house or the insurance. And it was quite a surprise. And a lot of times what happens is we lose the wealth that we've accumulated. We, meaning the Black community, lose the wealth that we've accumulated over a lifetime just simply because we did not plan. So with financial literacy, we want to encourage the family members to be a part of the plan. And the issues that we really need to focus on is to evaluate the insurance that your family will need if some emergency comes up. And you really want to be able to be prepared for anything that comes up, so that you don't lose the wealth that you've accumulated up until that point in your life. So the other, we think, is a way of accumulating wealth is we show people how to use the equity in the property that they own. I know in my family, the goal in life is to finish paying off your mortgage. And once you pay it off, that's the end of that value of that, or the end of the value of that property. Because if you look at the value, you really lose it when you pay off your mortgage and don't use the equity that's in the property. So what we try to do is to make people aware of the different ways you can use equity in the property. The other thing that we really like to do is to help people figure out and get help for the things that they need to do in order to plan the future of their estate. So Rosie actually is a program that's designed to help real estate professionals share with their community the things that I just mentioned. How do you prepare your family to receive and manage and keep your properties that you've acquired over your life? The consultant to help you determine what insurance that you're needed in order to keep the things in your family. Also, you want to be able to just know the people that you need to go to for the help that you will need in order to put your estate in order. I really think that the way that we're going about this is we want to train the real estate professional to share this information with their community. And if each chapter of NARAB has a person who's going to be a Rosie ambassador, then I think that we'll sort of speed up the process of making people aware of the importance of planning to keep the wealth in the African American community. And that's just a brief overview of Rosie. If you want more information, then you can contact the national office and they will put you in touch with me. Thank you, Lori. I think this is a wonderful opportunity to share with our community.
Thank you, Betsy, for that information on Rosie. That's a real estate opportunity for seasoned individuals. Great opportunity there for our seniors to make sure that they utilize the equity well that's in their home and that it's transferred over properly so they don't lose that equity that's in the home. So another initiative with the NARAB 8 is the HTTC, which is House Then the Car. And we're going to have our national chair, Ms. Letitia Grant, give us a brief overview on House in the Car.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, as stated. My name is Letitia Grant, and I am the national chair of House Then the Car. For everyone to know, House Then the Car is actually a national campaign under the NARAB, NAREB 8 initiative produced by our president, Donnell Williams. House in the Car actually has a strategic focus on the millennial population within the African American community, while using the data that is produced within the Sheba report, which is the state of housing in Black America. I am so excited to be the chair of House in the Car and all of the things that House in the Car stands for and the things that we have accomplished in a very, very short period of time. House in the Car, we understand that our home ownership rate as African Americans was lower than any of the other cultures. We're sitting at 44%, but we also know that we have the greatest room of increase within the millennial population. So House in the Car has definitely devised a chart so that all of our members are aware of the age group of millennials. So when speaking to those millennials, we've been able to provide talking points and presentation points that our millennial population is interested in. Through the research from House in the Car, we have realized that our millennial population has a great interest in investing, because the car not only represents the actual physical vehicle being the car represents any barrier preventing that particular millennial from home ownership. And those barriers can also include student loans. Well, with that being said, there has been an enormous amount of interest in multi-unit investing. And what the multi-unit investment would do is it would allow an individual to live on one side and rent out the other side. Offsetting that debt will allow them the opportunity for home ownership, and in addition to that, allowing them the opportunity to become an investor, which is one of the things in conversation that we found so many millennials are interested in. They are interested in real estate investing. They understand that they can invest their money in other things, but real estate has been one of the constants, and they are definitely concerned and curious on how that works. And multi-unit investing is one of those things. With my limited time, I want to make sure that I let everyone know that House in the Car has launched Tuesdays. Tuesday is House in the Car days, and we are actually on Realtus Nation TV on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. We alternate Home Ownership Changed My Life and Millennial Talk Tuesday. During that time, 1 o'clock, we talk to millennials, and we allow millennials to give their testimonies, whether they're talking about the barriers preventing them from home ownership, or they're giving the testimony of their journey to home ownership. Through our research, we have definitely found that our millennials will listen. They're the group that's most likely to listen to their peers and adapt and follow. Therefore, we give that platform to the millennials so that they can speak out. And then on Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we have our Super Series Tuesday, and we are we're in series 2. In series 2, we are now in episode 5. My time has passed. This whole quarantine time has just flown by, but during this time, we're focusing on the investor in you, and we're exposing our millennials to different types of investing in different ways they can get involved and they can become investors themselves. House in the Car is on every social media platform because 90.4% of millennials have social media accounts and utilize social media, and they spend 2 hours and 38 minutes per day on social media. So we are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Snapchat. We don't do much Snapchatting though, but we are on Snapchat as well. And we also have a web page, and it's housethenthecar.com. On every social media platform, we are House Then the Car, and our web page is housethenthecar.com. With our research, we've also found that our millennials have no interest in sitting in class for 8 hours. Therefore, we have established a set of tools to advertise on our national House Then the Car page for our millennials, because millennials are more likely to complete research before they contact the professional. We've done just about everything that we possibly can, with the exception of an app, which will be coming, to make this convenient for the millennial and the millennial at heart. I'd like to thank you guys for your time and allowing me to go over House Then the Car. If you are interested in contacting me for more information in reference to House Then the Car, you may email me at Letitia, that's LATISHA .grant, and it's GRANT at NAREB.com, or just check us out on the web or send us a message through social media. Thank you guys again, and I hope I didn't exceed my 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Grant, for that information on House in the Car. So we're going to move forward with our very own executive director, Mr. Antoine, who has the privilege of being a member of both organizations. So he's going to briefly tell us what it's like, the advantage of being a membership of both organizations, as well as the advantage of homeownership.
Thank you, Ms. Laura, and I want to thank Brother President Ward for his leadership in making this event possible. Brother Paul as well, ED Paul, and also Ms. Laura Washington, Brother Pavette from Alpha, who also works in our national office. I want to thank you all for getting us here today. I do have a few things I want to share with you. It is very powerful to be a member of Phi Alpha Fraternity, the greatest fraternity of all time, men of distinction, college-educated men and also being an executive director and a member of NARAP, the oldest Black real estate association in the country. They've been blazing the trail for 73 years. Alpha has been blazing the trail since '06, and both promote economic empowerment, which is really, really important. The other thing that I want to share with you that I think is really important is about the House of Alpha. And in the House of Alpha, we talk about how to a few, I am the castle of dreams. I'm ambitious, successful, and hopeful dreams. To many, I am the poetic palace where human feelings rhyme to celestial motives. And I am the treasury of good fellowship. And brothers, what I would say to you today is that we must provide, be the castle of dreams around home ownership to help our people know that with home ownership, they can increase the educational outcomes for their families. They can increase the small business home ownership rate because 45% of all small businesses start in the home. We can also increase the voter participation rate because when people own a home, they tend to vote more because they care about what's happening in their area. And the other thing I want to share with you, we have a saying in our association that if you own a Land Rover and still have a landlord, you are in violation. And so I would say, let's make a clarion call to the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha. Let's get all the Black Greek letter organizations on board, because if we can close the home ownership gap for Black men, we can strengthen families, we can increase Black wealth, and we can increase the number of our people that vote, and we can increase the number of people that own Black businesses. I can tell you firsthand that it has transformed my life. My kids, both of them, I was a poor student on free lunches, every opportunity program available. I sent it to the state senate in New York. Now I run a national organization. Both my daughter bought her first house at 23. I'm sure my son will probably be the same way. And both of them are honor students. And I attribute part of that is to faith, hard work, and Black home ownership. So I know what it did for me, and I pray that it would do the same for you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoine, for that wonderful testimony on as an individual that's part of both organizations and encouraging about home ownership. Again, we need to make sure that we continue with home ownership to increase that rate of 44% and increase our wealth. As we increase the home ownership, we increase our wealth in homeownership, and let's continue to do that. And stay tuned for part two. And if you thought this was powerful, we have even more powerful stuff coming your way.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a great conversation, and I'm really, really excited that, brothers, you decided to join us. I know we've had other people join us. On behalf of the General President, Dr. Everett B. Ward, and the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, all our brothers around the world, I'm Joe Paul, the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer for this great fraternity. Thank you to NAREB and their leadership for providing this information. As Ms. Washington just said, we will have a part two. You know why? Because we want to make sure that you have the tools, resources, and knowledge that you need to be successful. It's not about being rich. It's about being wealthy. Signing off. We'll see you on part